Tallahassee, Florida's Mayor Andrew Gillum is running for governor in the state of Florida. He won the Democratic primary, and now Andrew Gillum is dealing with some interesting commentary from his Republican opponent, Representative Ron DeSantis. He's also hoping to become the governor of Florida. Now, during a recent Fox News interview, DeSantis used some interesting words. Don't want to give too much away. Let's take a look.
How do you plan to beat him?
Well, look, I mean, this is Florida elections are always competitive, and this is a guy who, although he's much too liberal for Florida, I think he's got huge problems with how he's governed Tallahassee. He is an articulate spokesman for those far left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. And I watched those Democrat debates. None of that was my cup of tea, but I mean, he performed better than the other people there. So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda.
Okay, so that was on purpose. Let's start with bad and go to really ugly in his comments.
Can I play devil's advocate first?
Sure.
So you said that was on purpose. What if someone says, well, maybe he unwittingly used a word that is usually used in a racist context? So monkey is the word that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is there any chance that he unwittingly used that word?
No, he did it so we could do this segment. And of course, not about the Young Turks in particular, although that would be fun. No, so that all the press would call him racist. And why would he want the press to call him racist? The Trump strategy. What he's doing is he's planting his flag and telling all the what he perceives to be the white racist voters of Florida, I'm your guy. Don't worry, I'm not gonna let this, I can't even say it, right? Person take over, okay? I'm not gonna let this black guy take over. And so and I'll talk more about why I think he did it on purpose. First, let's break down the words. So he called him charismatic and articulate. Now you might think, well, those are lovely words, there's nothing wrong with that. Well, oftentimes that's what people say about African Americans, and some people say it with not bad intent. Most people say it with not bad intent, right? Like, oh, he's articulate. Like, why are you noting that he's articulate? Why? You know what I'm saying? Because to them, it's a bit of a surprise. But really, and a lot of people are mad about that. If you're not mad about that, I get it. I get it. And by the way, Democrats have done. Joe Biden called Obama articulate in a very similar way.
So that's kind of what I mean when I say, first of all, with DeSantis, it is playing devil's advocate. I really do think that he has bad intent. But there have been cases of well-meaning, well-intentioned people unwittingly saying something that's deemed offensive.
Now, the reason that he warmed up with articulate and charming is because he wants liberals to attack, and then he can go, oh, I call him articulate and they call me racist anyway. You see that? What are they doing? They're calling you racist, so come join me. So this is a trick that is actually very smart in politics. Republicans use it all the time. Democrats almost never use it because they're clowns. And what it's in his case, he's put a twist on it. It's planting your flag on a moral high ground and inviting your opponents to attack you. In his case, it's an immoral high ground, but his political calculation is that a lot of white voters in Florida will perceive that attack as against them because they hate the word racist. It gets under their skin. So he's inviting the press to attack him as racist and know that they can't help it, right? Because it was a deeply racist thing to say, not articulate. So he warmed up with that, and then he got to, we can't monkey, and he hit that word. If you watch that tape, he almost paused for just like a millisecond and then was like monkey around. And so it was not an accident. This guy is a politician. He's a hateful guy, but he's not a buffoon. We talked about him last night before he ever did this. And we talked about him on the show before when he ran the ad saying that he was with Donald Trump. And Ben and I gave him a lot of credit last night, even though that was a horribly obnoxious ad. And in a lot of ways, he's a beta male for like, oh, Donald Trump, oh my God, I tell people, and he's talking to his baby and he's building walls and showing him how to hate Mexicans, etc. But that in a Republican primary, that's gonna work, right?
Yeah.
So he did that on purpose. And given that context of him doing these kind of political strategy, this is clearly on purpose, inviting us to call him a racist so that he can take advantage of that. I think it is a miscalculation. I'll get to that in a second.
Okay, also I wanted to add a little more, I guess, evidence or strength to the argument that you're making. Because look, sometimes people will use an expression that they don't realize has a very negative, dark past. So I remember one time Cenk said off the reservation, without realizing off the reservation was a phrase used in a negative way toward Native Americans. So monkey around, I don't know if monkey around has a negative past or whatever, but monkey around is a phrase. But he didn't use the phrase monkey around. He said monkey this up, which I think is an interesting, like there's a distinction there. You see what I'm saying?
He's stretching to use the word monkey.
Yeah.
Okay, and so on the off reservation thing, and there's different connotations at different time periods too. In the old days, that was a perfectly normal thing to say. But if you thought about it, it's actually not a very pleasant thing to say about Native Americans. In the old days, people used the word Oriental instead of Asian.
Right.
And they didn't mean any harm by it. Now if you use it, well, why are you using it when people find it offensive? It's like you're trying to insult people.
Yep.
Now, there's some old school folks who use the word colored because that's what they grew up with. They don't mean any harm by it, okay? So it's a variety. In this case, it's a 39-year-old politician who has played these racial politics before. In his very first interview, he hits you with 3 code words going from subtle to completely not subtle. And he's, in my opinion, as I've explained, doing it on purpose to rally his voters. So why is it a miscalculation? Because, man, it is going to animate voters on the other side. Republicans are used to hitting Democrats and Democrats not responding. But these are different times. A lot of Democratic voters, progressives and minorities are super pissed at Trump. So then you go and call a historic candidate. Andrew Gillum would be the first African-American governor of Florida. And he had a shocking upset victory that people are really, really proud of. And then you call him a monkey on day one. Be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. I think that a lot of people are gonna show up to vote, not just for Andrew Gillum, but against DeSantis. So he went to that playbook one too many times, and he's miscalculating how many racists there are in Florida.
So I don't know. I think you might be wrong about that. So the only reason why I say it is because Florida is one of the only states that has not only maintained its support for Trump, but has increased its support for Trump, right? And I know that because I've kept a close eye on Florida, because my husband's from there. Anyway, but nonetheless, I think that, yeah, like he's using this strategy and this tactic because he really genuinely thinks it's gonna work, and he thinks it's gonna work because it's the same rhetoric that Trump uses, and the voters in Florida seem to love it.
Yeah, no. Again, but let's talk about who the voters are. So one last analysis here as to why I think it's a political miscalculation. So people who are animated by the right wing, unfortunately, are fairly consistent voters. So when you look at likely voters, they're in that camp. So, and for example, here's some facts to back that up. Trump had stunning a high turnout from white evangelical voters, the kind that are sticking with him no matter what he says about other people. 85% of them turned out to vote, and 81% of them voted for Donald Trump. Those are unreal numbers. They're incredibly high. So those guys are already animated to go out and vote for people like DeSantis, who say that they are in love with Donald Trump, and they do ad songing. He has his wife talking about how awesome Donald Trump is.
Right.
You want to talk about a cuck, okay? But they love that. They're like, oh, a guy who cucks himself to our authoritarian leader. Good job. Those guys are already going to show up and vote. But unfortunately, a lot of Democrats don't vote. You know that in Florida, that is trending Republican and has been for years. There's actually more registered Democrats than Republicans. But God damn it, they don't go and vote until you call their historic candidate a monkey. And so it's more likely that Democrats will show up in anger and cost you the election. Because if both sides show up, Democrats win, even in places like Florida. So I think he's using an old playbook that worked for a long, long time, but not in this election. There is a blue wave. In one last piece of context for you guys in terms of facts. Last couple of primaries on the Democratic side in Florida got about 800 voters out. This primary, 1.4 million. Gillum, until last week, was polling in fourth. Why was he polling in fourth but came in first? Because the poll looks at likely voters. But unlikely voters showed up to vote for Gillum. Young, progressive, minorities, okay? And so Gillum can bring those guys out, and then you help his cause by calling him a monkey, basically. And those guys are gonna show up in force in the general election, and then you screwed yourself. And if I'm right about that and that happens, oh, sweet justice. And no matter whether that works or doesn't work, whoever's right on the political calculation, let's just acknowledge, DeSantis, you wanted it, fine, you'll get it. You are a deeply racist person. And the fact that you're willing to divide us and to play on that fear and especially that hatred and do it on purpose makes you a despicable human being. And if you're a decent person in Florida, no matter what your race is or even what your party is, you're really gonna proudly support that guy? No, you should show up to say, not on my watch, that's not the America I believe in. You know what game he's playing. Even if you're a Republican, you know what game he's playing. Are you gonna let him get away with it, Florida? That's my question to you. By the way, yes, AndrewGillum.com. He was on Rebel headquarters. He's a fantastic candidate, and he will actually fight for the average person in Florida. We'll have the link down below if you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook. Click on the link, go to his website. At a bare minimum, find out who he actually is as a person and as someone who's looking to represent you. Look at his policies and see if he's gonna deliver for you while the other guy is throwing around names and trying to divide you.
Want to see more videos like this? Well, you can. All you have to do is subscribe to the TYT channel below. And don't forget to become a TYT member and download the TYT Plus app on your phone. Head over to tyt.com/join today.